Welcome back to another farming simulator video, and following on from my video on buy or lease, there were a lot of comments from the PC players to use lease to own. So we're going to have a bit of a deep dive into that. We're going to look at the costs, how much it costs compared to just buying it, and at what point you should actually make the decision to own or cancel the lease. So let's get stuck in. So before we go deep into the numbers, I'm going to run through some examples. I have 4 tractors in front of me that are leased. They all cost £100,000 to buy because that just makes the maths easier. I'm just going to go through each one and explain where we end up. So the first of these is the Kubota M6 we have in front of us. This has been on lease for 12 months and has only done 5 hours of work. So the leasing cost so far would have been £24,500. If we just jump into the store, we can see that our purchase cost at this point would be £76,166. And so if I just flash those numbers up on the screen, that would have given us a total cost for the Kubota of £100,666. So we've paid £666 to spread the cost over the year, but we've got a pretty hefty final payment. Next up, we've got the Zetor in front of us. Now, this has been on a lease for 2 years, so 24 months, and has done 20 hours of work. And this is one of the examples they have in the mod on ModHub. So we will have spent £68,000 leasing this tractor at the moment of the £100,000. And we would have a final payment here of £33,333, and that would put us at £101,333. So again, for paying for it over the 2 years, we pay just over £1,000. I don't think that's too bad. I'll have a look in a bit at interest rates maybe and see how that compares. We've got the other one here is another example from the mod. This is been on a lease for 36 months and he has worked 20 hours again. So we will have paid £80,000 for this in leasing fees over the 3 years, but the final payment is only £22,000. So £102,000 to then own this. So we've had the tractor 3 years, we've done 20 hours of work in it, and we've only paid a couple of grand extra for financing. I think that's pretty good. The last one is this Massey Ferguson. We've had this tractor for 38 months and 24 hours. Now, why is that important? The way the financing is set up is it is around a maximum of 20 hours and or a maximum of 36 months. Once you go beyond that, the costs start to ramp up, and I'll show you that in a bit in terms of the extra you pay. So if you are doing lease to own, you need to be aware of that 20 hours or 36 months. And so this tractor we've had for 38 months, it's done 24 hours of work. We've paid £90,400 out already in leasing costs, and our final payment is still going to be £22,000. Dollars. So that's kind of the lowest it's gonna get for these £100,000 vehicles. So in this case, we would pay £112,400 to purchase this tractor. That's done a fair bit of work, so maybe that's not a problem. Okay, so what we've got on the screen now is a table of the final payment, depending on how many months you've leased the vehicle, from 1 up to 38 months, and then how many hours work you've done from 1 to 24 hours. And what you'll see is that where I mentioned the lease is set up for a maximum of 36 months of leasing and or 20 hours of work. And so as you go down oh sorry, as you increase the amount of hours of work that the tractor's done, the repayment is lower until you hit that 20-hour point, and then it stops. So at that point, you're still paying for every hour that you use the piece of equipment, but your final repayment is not reducing. And the same as you go from left to right in terms of the amount of time. Once you hit that 36 months, the payment stops reducing, and then you're still paying for a monthly fee, but you're not reducing your final payment. And once you get down to that 3620 point, that's your minimum. So the minimum repayment is always going to be 22% of the purchase cost, even if you lease it for more than 36 months or do more work with it. So I've used that. I've got worked out the leasing costs from the stuff that I did last time. And what I'm going to put up on the screen now is the total that you would pay. So on the screen now, we've got the total. What this is done, this is color coded around. The green bit is kind of the lowest, up to red is highest. But pretty much I'll put this up in graph form as well on the screen. At some point I'll switch between the two. Basically what you can see is that for most of the time that you're using a lease to own, as long as you stay under that 20 hours, that's quite important. And kind of, maybe the first 18 months of life, you're really only paying a little bit more. So you're less than 1% extra. So these are percentages. So your final cost is 101% of purchasing. So, for our example here, our £100,000 tractor would in total have cost us £101,000 with the leasing costs and the final payment. If it was a £200,000 tractor, you'd pay £202,000. And as you can see, up to 36 months and the 20 hours, you're really only paying a couple of percent more. As soon as you go above the 20 hours and the 36 months, the costs start to increase quite significantly. And that is because your final repayment has hit its minimum and you're still paying leasing costs. So, as you get up to that 20-hour point or 36 months, you really want to start thinking about pulling the trigger, really, because at that point you've probably spent quite a bit. You've spent probably 80% of the cost anyway. I see lease to own as really an intent to own. So if you're not planning to own it, return it quickly. If you do plan to own it, once you hit that 20 hours or 36 months or both, make the final payment. And that's when you're going to get your, once you go beyond that, it's getting bad. If you can make that final payment earlier, you're going to save yourself a bit of cash, but it's not a huge amount. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. The plot that's on the screen now is the leasing cost as a percentage of the purchase cost. And what I've done is I've highlighted everything that's under 50%. And why I've done that is if you spot a tractor that is similar, that you want that's in the sales, typically you can pick them up for around 50% of the purchase cost, sometimes lower, sometimes higher. So I picked that as a cut-off. And what you might, if you've got a tractor on lease or a bit of kit on lease, and an equivalent thing comes up in the store on sale, these are kind of the cut-off points where you've committed less than what you're saving. So I think once you're much beyond this point, you've already spent more than 50% on the leasing costs. So that's money that you've lost. So then buying the same tractor that's about 50%, you're not really saving any money. And assuming that the tractor you picked is the one you want, I'd kind of stick with it. But if you've got something on lease to own and it's low hours or it's quite low life and an equivalent comes up in the sale, maybe you make the swap. Yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to say on this. Basically, lease to own is really cool, and you can lease a bit of kit and not pay too much more. Actually, let's see if we can find those interest. Okay, so I've just done a quick test, and it looks like the interest rate is about 4% for the year on normal difficulty. So as long as you stay within that 20 hours and 36 months, definitely saving yourself a bunch of cash, particularly for kit that you're not going to use more than 20 hours in that 3 years. You know, you're saving quite a bit on your cost of a loan. The downside is because it's leased, you can't reconfigure it. So that is a problem. But if you're using a lease to own, you're playing on PC. So there are probably things you could do in the XML to tweak that if you needed to change tires or whatever. So that gets around that. Anyway, I hope this has been useful. If it has, please click the like button. Comments, questions, suggestions below, and I will see you next time.